For the great unwashed, David Goggins is one of the world's top endurance athletes. Aside from being a Navy SEAL and surviving not one but 3 hell weeks due to injuries, he's also competed in over 60 ultramarathons, triathlons, and ultra triathlons, regularly finishing in the top 5. You might be wondering what this has to do with bass playing, but one of the biggest stumbling blocks for students of the bass guitar is developing the mental strength required to develop a command and mastery for this instrument. Now stay with me. One of the things I love about David Goggins is how he had to scratch and crawl every step of the way to mastering his mind. He didn't have much talent, he had several learning disabilities, and a very abusive childhood. His life was riddled with setback after setback, but still managed to achieve, and still does, what most people would consider to be impossible. What I've done in this video is to outline some of Goggins' effective concepts that he teaches world-class athletes along with special forces operators. He has a great book called Can't Hurt Me, which I would highly recommend because all of his concepts will translate perfectly to the struggling practicing musician. Now stick around because this might just apply to you. The first principle is something that I've covered before called get comfortable with the uncomfortable. If you want to be great, you have to do the stuff that no one else wants to do. As Goggins says, do something that sucks every day. Naming the note names, note functions, counting out loud, ear training, and practicing every day are just a few of the things that most people don't want to do. Learn to take a leaf out of Goggins' book and embrace the suck. The next Goggins principle is avoid becoming part of the mediocre majority. The mind will always try to find ways of convincing you that you're just mediocre. It's the ultimate get out of jail card that makes us feel better about ourselves. You know, mediocrity often says there's no point in practicing today because you can always do it tomorrow. Sound familiar? One of the techniques that Goggins uses to combat this mediocre mindset is to tell yourself that today you're just going to do a short 30-minute practice session, tricking the mind in the process. However, when you get to that 30-minute mark, greatness takes over and stomps mediocre's head and does another hour and a half. As Goggins says, get out there and get after it. Now, another cool concept that Goggins talks about is learning to become the underdog. This is a really interesting concept because all the great stories in history are based on the main characters overcoming adversity in search of accomplishing their desired goals. From Rocky to Shrek, it's really the same story over and over again. Now, don't worry about the naysayers in your life that tell you won't be able to do something. They're only going to hold you back, largely due to their own shortcomings and lack of self-belief. Another concept that Goggins talks about and emphasizes is learning to become a practitioner, not a theorist. I see this all the time. It's super important to understand the difference of these two meanings. The practitioner is the person that logs a significant amount of flight time on his instrument. This is crucial. You can't just sit around and talk about the theory of music. You've got to actually be able to play it. This brings us to another concept which says you can only improve what you can track and measure. This means that you have to log everything that you do into your practice schedule. You have to do this where you're writing everything down. You have to have a special diary or a planner that you can actually write in all the times you're practicing across your week. I suggest that you start this on a Sunday night, plan your whole week, and then try to carry out this to where you get the consistency from day to day. What I've found over the years is one of the most important things to do is to practice every day. This is a lifestyle. It's not just, you practice when you want. Now, if you don't want to improve and you really don't want to be your better self, then of course, don't even listen to what I'm talking about because it won't help you anyway. But if you really do want to get better and you want to find your best self, Not saying you want to be the best in the world, but you want to find what you can do that's best. This is the way forward. You have to write it down and you have to evaluate your progress. And the only way you can do that is by writing this down in some sort of a journal. Another concept that Goggins talks about is having the ability to add up all your small victories along your journey and remind yourself frequently about what you've gone through in the past to get you where you are today. Goggins has this cool concept called the cookie jar. Now, it's really more of a metaphor, although I have seen on the internet that there's some guys that actually buy a cookie jar and do this whole thing. But what you want to do is realize that what is contained in the cookie jar is just a bunch of little pieces of paper that has all those little small victories. And also failures, because we fail in certain things, and going through those failures actually gets us to where we are presently. And if you're kind of stressed about your practice and you kind of think, wow, I'm not getting anywhere, I've hit a plateau, what you've got to do, or you kind of think to yourself, man, this isn't worth it, or I'm not any good. What you do is you reach into that cookie jar and you kind of pull it out and you read one of those things, I could pull that out and go, oh yeah, I got to remind myself I'm that guy who had Dave Garibaldi in my band in 1986 when I was in LA. Oh yeah, Patches Stewart was also in that band, the guy who played trumpet with Marcus Miller. That kind of like reinforces my whole cause or my desire to kind of continue to go for those specific goals. This is very important. Like Goggins himself might say, oh yeah, I was the guy who endured 3 Navy SEAL Hell Weeks and survived. Not many people can do that. And we all have those little victories, those little stories, and even the failures where we didn't do it right, but we realized we didn't get it right and we took a different path and we started to really apply ourselves, and then that got us to the next kind of rung on the ladder. So this is a very cool concept. He calls it the cookie jar. So to kind of even out that cookie jar concept, another way to look at things is that nobody really cares what you did yesterday. So you can't rely on all those past victories. You have to really keep going in today. And that's one of the reasons for the cookie jar. You read the thing and it helps you to propel you forward. But if you just kind of bask in your glory of what you've done in yesteryear, no one really cares about that. So always ask yourself, what have I done today to become a better bass player? Another concept is developing the ability to rationally convince your mind that you're capable of achieving what you believe to be impossible. Only then does the mind start to break things down tactically, enabling you to achieve what you set out for yourself. If your mind isn't convinced, then you will always lose. Another attribute that you want to strive to adopt is a superior work ethic. A concept that I talk about in my book, How to Practice with Maximum Efficiency, is called Overkill. Now, Goggins did 67,000 pull-ups in preparation to beat the world record, which at the time was about 4,000 reps. He broke this record in 2013 by completing 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours, but pay close attention to his overkill preparation. Now, another priceless concept that Goggins talks about all the time is what's called the 40% rule. And I love this because you can adapt this to whatever you're doing, whether it be music or sport or whatever, or just, getting things done. We're all so much more capable than we think we are, and that's the problem. We think, if I do like an hour, I'm burnt out or I'm this or that. So the idea behind this 40% rule is that when you think you're done, when you think you're completely spent, you're really only 40% done. And you've still got 60% in your tank. Now, a lot of my followers know that I'm really into martial arts, but to be quite honest, I haven't done much training since I've been about 8 years back into playing music. That's what happens to a lot of musicians. We become studio rats. We're practicing, we're developing new concepts. There's a lot of time that's put into this whole process. But what I've kind of come to realize is that I really want to get back into some serious martial arts training. So I've joined a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club. It's kind of good for where the age I'm at. And also I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because you can't fake it. You have to really be able to participate in it. So I joined this club. This is about a month and a half ago. Join this club, go to the class, and the day before I went, my wife said, wow, you haven't done any training and preparation for this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. I've done this stuff for years. Well, I haven't actually done it for 8 years. So I show up to this club, and we do the first 20-minute warm up. It's kind of, just to get our blood going. When I got finished with that 20-minute warm-up, I thought I was done. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, even in we practiced some forward rolls. I end up pulling an intercostal muscle during that time. And we're not even 20 minutes into the class yet. We've still got like another hour and a bit to go. And I kind of thought to myself, God, am I actually going to be able to make it? But the thing is I had to tell myself, no, I can do this. I've done this kind of stuff before. I'm just out of shape. I'm going to hang in there. I'm not going to be that guy that just sits the rest of the class out because I feel that I'm not fit enough or whatever. So I ended up doing the whole class, and what that really showed me again is this whole concept about the 40% rule, is that when you think you're done, you have so much more in the tank. Is it exhausting? Yes, it is. Is it taxing on your mind? Yes, but you get so much more benefit by adopting this kind of mentality rather than just say, I feel a bit tired, so I'm going to give up for the rest of the day. So remember that 40% rule. When you think you're done, you're only really 40% done. Another point that I want to make, and Goggins brings this up because, of course, he's an athlete, a world-class athlete, but as well as learning to practice your base every day, you really want to start to learn to work out physically every day. Just to do 20 push-ups here, do a few sit-ups, do some jumping jacks, go for a jog. It gets your mind into shape. It sharpens the mind by doing this. Everyone's a couch potato these days. Everyone's just sit on their couch and watch TV or sit behind the computer. Nothing shapes discipline and self-esteem like working out does. This is the foundation of life. Now, the last concept that I want to leave you with today is that most people tend to choose the path of least resistance, but the path of most resistance is the true path to success. Now, go practice. I'd like to invite you to join me for my beginner's course, which starts January 16th, 2019. Although this course is designed for the beginner in mind, the material covered in this course provides the more advanced bass player with a complete blueprint for teaching people who are just starting out. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.